This is a PokePress special report. Hi, I'm Stephen Reich here at the PokePress PIRN Studios in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm on the phone with John Loeffler of Rave Music, here with another in our series of interviews about the history of Pokemon music. So this time we're going to talk about the soundtracks, both the little bit of the pop and some of the score to the first two Pokemon movies, Pokemon the First Movie and Pokemon the Movie 2000. So first off, we were going to start off with the Pokemon the First Movie pop soundtrack. Now, John, why don't you explain what's the sort of the music business process? This is a various artist soundtrack that has a bunch of different artists on it. Many of the songs were recorded, in some cases, a long time before the movies. How are these things kind of put together?
Sure. Anyway, Stephen, first of all, it's great to talk to you again, and I love reminiscing and talking about these various Pokemon albums and the films because it's one of the highlights of my career, no question about it. I loved working on them, and it was a very exciting time in my life. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to reminisce a little bit. The way these pop soundtracks are usually put together is the distributor of the film, in this case Warner Brothers, almost always has a relationship with a record label, and Warner's had several labels, one of which was Atlantic, which became the lead record label for putting together the pop soundtrack. So then they, looking at Pokemon and the various and the appropriate demographic for Pokemon, they decided that they would focus a lot on young pop artists with a leaning, when possible, towards boy band types, though there was a large variety. But young, older teenagers and young adults were the primary market. And so they went into their roster, and especially if they were new artists, and how can we leverage the publicity of Pokemon and all the attention this film is going to get to help advance the careers of these young artists. So that's pretty much the goal. So then they start pulling together bands and put together probably a list of 20-some songs, more than on the album, and then working with Norman Grossfeld and Four Kids Productions with a little bit of a nod to myself, who was the music director as well as a co-composer of the score, and we'd go from there. But it was in many ways a business decision about which bands could use and would benefit from the promotion and being associated with Pokemon.
And there was one song in particular that you did work on. You actually wrote it and actually got to meet the band. It's Brother My Brother, the last track on the album that plays during the scene where Ash is looking over the Pokemon battling, and it plays out there. So first of all, what was the process of writing that song?
All right, and that's one of my favorite songs. We were doing the score, and the score being the big orchestral score, which is the background, which supports the drama of the whole film. And Ralph Schuckett and I, my collaborator on the score and the song, were working on it. And that moment came up and was so dramatic. I can't remember whether I turned to Ralph or he turned to me, but we said, we got to write a song for this, because this is like the most perfect moment. Now, all the other songs in the film, on the whole, are songs that have been gathered to kind of help create the soundtrack, but they weren't written specifically to the dramatic moment of the film. They didn't have the opportunity to look at the film. I doubt whether any of the other artists actually read the script. They just knew it was a Pokemon movie, and there needed to be a variety of songs and sounds. In our case, that dramatic moment of looking down and seeing the havoc that this war has created and this battle has created was such a plaintive cry. And Ralph and I decided to write this song like, Brother, My Brother, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? Look, I mean, what are you doing to the world? And that was the genesis of writing the song. And after we wrote the song, and we were pretty excited about the song that we wrote, we recognized that to get the song in the film and get the support of the powers that be, that we needed to get a band or an artist that could have some weight that would sing it, because my singing it just wasn't gonna make it in terms of marketing and PR power. So various managers that we knew, we asked around, and one of them recommended Blessed Union of Soul. They actually said that they liked it a lot, and they liked the idea of being associated with the movie. So Ralph and I actually flew out to Ohio, where they lived and where they had their recording studio, and worked with them to do a version of the song in their style with them, co-producing it. And that's the song that ended up in the movie.
That's pretty cool. Now, you mentioned the score briefly before. Ralph and you worked on that. What are some of the motifs that you went for when you were making the score to the first movie?
Well, one of this actually might be interesting to the listeners. Anime, which is the style of animation that the Pokemon movie is done in, is a pretty flat form of animation. And so the direction that we had all kind of concluded was necessary to make the movie come alive and be as dramatic as possible was, and I wish I got this type of assignment more nowadays, which is to use as big an orchestra as possible to make the music sound as grand and as big and as dramatic, a la John Williams, to take this flat animation and make it feel as dramatic as possible. Because amazingly, even with an anime style of animation, which is pretty flat, almost and two-dimensional, when big orchestra comes in with timpanis and tubas and French horns and a big string section, you can still get tingles even though the images on the screen might be pretty flat. So our first goal was to be as dramatic and as emotional as possible, and second was to give it a lot of weight. So that's why we were able to use a big orchestra.
Were you actually there for any of the recording sessions?
I mean, was I there? Of course we were there. We did the score. I was there. That's right. In the studio, we did both of them in California, outside Los Angeles. And Ralph conducted the whole thing. And I was in the control booth.
All right, and then moving on to the second movie, that was sort of the same process, but because the first movie the pop soundtrack had sold so well, when you got to the second movie, there was a little bit more of an effort from Atlantic to sort of go for certain artists, wasn't there?
Exactly. The first movie did so well, and the series at this point was so successful, and it was that Atlantic was willing, they were less hesitant to kind of pull out the star power. And, that's why you get the benefit of having the Power One, which, with Donna Summer singing the lead and David Foster producing it. I mean, that's pretty much the A-team for that song. And, but also because of the success of the first score, I was given some more flexibility. And if you look at the credits and the songs, there's at least 3 or 4 songs on there that myself and Ralph, or myself and John Siegler, my other songwriting partner, were able to write and then find various bands to sing the songs, interpret it in their style, but we were able to write the songs for the movie.
And the score for the second movie is pretty interesting as well. It's got, I would have to say, if I gave it a word, I'd say it has sort of more of a maritime feel. It feels like you're on the ocean, even more than the first one. Was that what you were going for when you scored this?
Yes. Actually, very, very good. I mean, Stephen, I'm very impressed. We definitely were, because there's a lot of imagery of water and stuff like that, and that was definitely part of what we were trying to accomplish.
And were there any other memories of working on the music for the first couple movies that you wanted to share?
Well, just imagine you get these movies, and both of these films were first done in Japanese. So while they were being translated and while the storyline was being slightly altered or improved for American audiences, and while the creators were working on that, I had a chance to spend a lot of time looking at the film. So these movies, I lived with these movies for months on end, working my way through slowly literally from the beginning to the end of the movie, coming up with various motifs, deciding whether these motifs really worked, then weaving those motifs through the film so that there's a continuity to the whole thing. So I love the experience. I love being able to just lock myself in a room with Ralph and sit there and watch the movie and talk about it and make notes and write something and listen back to it. And just, it's rare nowadays you can spend 3 months focusing on one project. And I love doing it. I love the results. I thought it was one of the very, very exciting thing to work on. And I'm envious anybody who gets to work on movies specifically all the time, because it's a great process.
All right. Well, thank you very much, John. It's been great hearing these memories of the first couple movies.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a joy talking to you and reminiscing. Like I said, it was a great period of my life, and I thank I really love talking about it. I hope there's more movies to talk about in the future.
This has been Stephen Reich from the PokePress PIRN Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, on the phone with John Loeffler of Rave Music, talking about the first 2 Pokemon movies' score and pop soundtracks. This has been a PokePress Special Report.